Number 1, Mr. John Ward.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this morning I presided at a meeting of the Cabinet and had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today. This evening I shall speak at a dinner of the Royal Society, along with the Prime Ministers of Norway and Sweden, to conclude the International Conference on Surface Water Acidification.
Mr. Ward.
Mr. Speaker, is my right honourable friend aware of the widespread welcome for the government's determination to encourage saving? And in particular the Chancellor's announcement of the big increase in capital which may now be held before people can receive community charge rebates, housing benefit and other benefits.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend makes his own point. This was a vital part of my right honourable friend the Chancellor's very popular budget for savers. It is right, very popular budget for savers. It is right to recognise the conscientious efforts of people who have saved over the years, especially for their retirement, and that's precisely what the budget did.
Mr. Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, may I welcome the fact that the government has made a positive response to the demands which I and my honourable friend from Gascaden made that retrospective payments be given to people in Scotland who had been denied poll tax rebates. Denied poll tax rebates because of their modest savings. May I also say that this is an ignominious retreat by Her Majesty's government, and it still only deals with one of the multitude of injustices in Scotland, England and Wales arising out of the poll tax. Doesn't the Prime Minister think it would be proper for the Secretary of State for Scotland and the Chancellor of the Exchequer to come to the House today in order to make full statements and to make themselves open to questioning by honourable members from both sides of the House? Isn't it clear from the series of events, between the budget on Tuesday and today, that the poll tax cannot really be mitigated by concessions? Only abolition will do.
No, Mr. Speaker. The community charge will be very popular.
Order! The Prime Minister.
Very popular with people living alone, such as widows and widowers, who have for years paid very high rates and who are going to be far better off paying a fair and reasonable community charge. Those people, and often people who've saved all their lives, have been ignored by honourable and right honourable gentlemen opposite. With regard to the announcement by my friend, right honourable friend the Secretary of State for Scotland, he has said that earlier today he will be considering, he said...
Order! I'm sure order. This is a matter which the whole House wishes to hear about.
He said that he will be considering with colleagues and with a convention of Scottish local authorities how a simple and workable scheme of They don't care.
Order. The whole House, I know, is anxious to hear the details of what the Prime Minister has to say. She must be given an opportunity to say it.
They don't really care.
Prime Minister.
How a simple and workable scheme of ex gratia payments can be devised. It will be a scheme administered and funded by the Scottish Office from within its existing resources. My right honourable friend will report the proposals to the House as soon as the details of a Scottish scheme have been fully worked out. I stress the scheme is an ex gratia one. No new legal rights will be...
Order! These are very important matters. The Prime Minister.
I stress the scheme will be an ex gratia one, No new legal rights will be created to retrospective payments. There could be no new legal rights on a major statement in a budget going far wider than community charge. So the arguments which ministers have made against formal retrospection stand. As soon as the scheme is fully worked out after consultation, my right honourable friend has indicated that he will make a full statement to the House.
Mr. Speaker, in view of what the Prime Minister just said, why couldn't the Secretary of State come to the House today and make a statement because of the interest on both sides of the House in the arrangements that the government is making? Is it simply that he is afraid to acknowledge plainly the gross incompetence of the government?
I note that the right honourable gentleman thinks that the excellent proposals we made in the budget were gross incompetence. They were, in fact, very, very good and very, very generous, and could not possibly have been announced by a Labour government whenever it had been in charge of the economy of the country. With regard to the way in which people in Scotland are treated, may I point out that honourable members want to ask questions.
Order.
May I point out that when it comes to government expenditure, England has £2,100 per head, Wales has £2,400 per head, Scotland has £2,800 per head.
Maureen Hicks.
Number 2, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Maureen Hicks.
Would my right honourable friend agree that when the lawmakers opposite become lawbreakers and stoop to the point with their community charge campaign, where next Monday they invite in leading highly paid pop stars into the Palace of Westminster to encourage people not to pay the community charge and to break the law, does she not think this is a disgusting and highly irresponsible example to set to the young people we represent?
I agree with my honourable friend. It is totally and utterly wrong to break the law, and very wrong to encourage by example young people to break the law. I trust that the right honourable gentleman, the leader of the opposition, will disown this latest manifestation of intent to break the law, or is it that he depends too much on those 30 members who have made that clear, too much in order to make it quite clear that they should not in fact belong to the Labour Party?
Sillars. Jim Sillars.
Mr. Speaker, on the question of competence, is the Prime Minister aware that in the number of Prime Ministers I've seen in this House, I've never seen a more incompetent performance than hers in answering the question to the Leader of the Opposition? Is it not the case that the total value of the poll tax rebate concession in 1990 will be £120 million. Proportionately, Scotland should get between £10 and £12 million. Is it not the case that the concession so-called this afternoon is valued around about £4 million? And is it not the case that she's robbing Peter to pay Paul? Why? What's she got against the Scottish people that she has got to add insult to injury?
Mr. Speaker, the figure which the honourable gentleman mentioned, £4 million, is correct. I have indicated the generous arrangements per head for Scotland, with regard to public expenditure. With regard to community charge, the aggregate exchequer grant to Scotland towards local expenditure plus the business rate meets 80% of local authority expenditure. In England, the aggregate exchequer grant plus business rate meets only 70% of local authority expenditure. Scotland is far better off than England with regard to help from the taxpayer to local authority expenditure.
Anthony Combs.
refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Coombs.
Will my right honourable friend confirm the comments made last week by the Director General of the CBI, that not only is manufacturing output in this country at an all-time record level, but also that exports are rising twice as quickly as world trade generally? Our share of world trade is also rising, and that now we actually export more per person than even Japan. Would she also agree with the vast majority of British businessmen that the one way to put this disastrously into reverse is to adopt the high taxation, low incentive, high spending policies of the party opposite?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I totally agree with my honourable friend, and I'm happy to confirm that manufacturing output last year reached an all-time record, so did manufacturing investment, and this morning's trade figures show that our exports since December rose by 11% over last year's figure. While imports are stable, that provides further clear evidence that the deficit is narrowing, that our policies are working. I noticed that under the last Labour government, manufacturing production actually fell during their time in office.
Griffiths.
Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Glasgow Guscaden, who led the campaign to get justice?
I'm not certain that falls within the Prime Minister's responsibilities, though.
Will the Prime Minister, since she is responsible...
Order. Come on, please.
Yes, will the Prime Minister recognise that many people in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will feel that it is very unfair that they have been unable to claim rebates this year on their rates because they have more than £8,000? Will she look at the injustice of that as well?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, I congratulate my right honourable friend the Chancellor on his excellent budget and on his
Order. Prime Minister.
And on the excellent provision he made and generous provision he made for capital disregards for a wide range of income benefits and also for a very good savers budget.
Philip Oppenheim.
Four, sir.
Four.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Time.
Would my honourable friend like to contrast last Tuesday's budget with certain previous ones? Does she recollect that in certain previous budgets, people actually used to queue up to stock up in case prices rose too much? Does she also recollect that in some of those budgets, certain savings were taxed at a rate of 98%, which led the New Statesman to assert that they were driving the country from affluence into bankruptcy? And wouldn't the Prime Minister agree with me that whatever economic problems we now have are as nothing compared to those bequeathed to us by the last Labour government?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend in the vigorous way in which he puts it. It is very strange to see the opposition supporting a savers budget when their whole policy was to put a savings tax on investment income, and it was this government which took it on.
Ashdown.
Speaker, in view of the humiliating turnaround this afternoon in which Scotland was again treated as an afterthought, does the Prime Minister realise what a shambles her government has descended to? She tells us that her government's about leadership, but is it not the case that there are now more cabinet ministers travelling behind the elephant clearing up the mess than there are in front telling it where to go?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I should have thought the right honourable gentleman could have done better than that. It was because of my right honourable friend the Chancellor that from the 1st of April this year the capital disregard for some 4 income support benefits are to be put up as high as £16,000. I'm surprised that the Liberal, or whatever it's called these days, bench, isn't grateful for that. Of course, the government they supported in office could never have done such a generous thing. We would have been way below that. disregards in that time of some £2,000, may I remind the honourable gentleman.
Kenneth Hine?
Fine.
I refer the honourable lady, I refer my honourable friend to reply which I gave some moments ago.
Hine? Order. Order. Mr. Hine.
My right honourable friend will be aware of the deep wounding insult to the people of the North West from the Shadow Labour Sports Minister, the Honourable Member for Birmingham Smallheath, in undermining Manchester's bid for the Olympic Games.
Order! Get it in order, please.
Will she reaffirm that it is the intention of this government to support Manchester's bid for the Olympic Games, and her government will do all they possibly can to ensure that it comes to Manchester?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we wholeheartedly support Manchester's bid for the 1996 Olympics. They've put together an excellent brochure. It shows how very well Lancashire and the North West have done under Tory government, that they're able to put up such a very good bid, and I hope they will be successful.
Business question.